Oh, hi. Good morning, everyone. And I really do thank you all for being here this morning. I, of course, want to acknowledge my colleagues that are in the room, Councilmember Pierina Sanchez, Chair of the Housing and Buildings Committee, Councilmember Kevin Riley, Chair of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises, and Councilmember Farrah Lewis, Chair of my former subcommittee, Landmarks, Public Sightings, and Dispositions. Thank you, colleagues, for being here this morning and for joining us. Councilmember Salamanca could not be here. Of course, he is the chair of the Land Use Committee, but we thank him and all of you for your leadership to advance affordable housing for New Yorkers. I also want to recognize the work of our partners from the New York Housing Conference and the Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development. We appreciate you very much. It is no secret that New York faces a housing crisis. We have too few homes for New Yorkers, which disproportionately burdens those who truly need affordable housing. Today, I'm releasing my planning and land use guidelines with an application toolkit. It gives council members, community stakeholders, land use applicants, and the city a set of principles and tools to advance successful development projects. Simultaneously, I'm releasing my housing agenda, which is a step towards addressing this housing crisis. These are being released together because to best address the housing crisis, we need both sound housing policies and an improved planning and land use process. The Council has worked together to chart a path forward where all New Yorkers can have a place to call home. We know that safe, affordable, and secure housing keeps our communities safe and gives working families across the 5 boroughs a real chance at building their legacy in this city. This is the reality that all New Yorkers deserve and one that this council is determined to realize. As Speaker, I've mobilized the powers of my office to advance tough land use negotiations to deliver more affordable housing. We successfully brought stakeholders together and strategically supported council members in deliberations to deliver for their communities. Our efforts have involved securing commitments from both the administration and developers to fulfill neighborhood needs, including when my office answered Councilmember Wan's call to help address homelessness by advancing the creative use of CityFEP's vouchers for Innovation Queens. This council has approved over 40 projects to create more than 12,000 units of housing, with more than 60% being affordable. This includes Innovation Queens, the Bruckner rezoning in Councilmember Velasquez's district, Hallett's North in Councilmember Caban's district, and Innovative Urban Village in Councilmember Barron's district. Yet, the scale of this crisis is greater than our past success in the land use process. Now more than ever, we need reliable action to address every aspect of housing development and preservation. We must elevate the role of comprehensive planning throughout the land use process to maximize the success of housing and neighborhood development, balancing citywide goals and local needs. A crucial component to achieving this is community engagement, which must be expanded through participation and input from diverse stakeholders at the neighborhood level in frequency, depth, and inclusivity. New developments present opportunities for us to realize our comprehensive vision for healthy communities, which include equitable economic development, improved open space, sustainability, and access to essential services. We must build and develop more housing. Yet, this must be done fairly and responsibly, and while expanding affordability. And commitments to housing preservation, home ownership, and agency capacity cannot be an afterthought. Though citywide development targets have been recently identified, localized goals are needed to ensure that housing development is distributed equitably and where infrastructure best supports it. The council will legislate citywide fair housing to require a detailed framework for housing production that also considers preservation, vouchers, and neighborhood investment for each community district. This would direct highly resourced neighborhoods with good access to jobs, schools, and public transportation to contribute to affordable housing development. New York can be a leader on equitable housing development that is lacking in so many areas across our nation. At the center of our plan is the everyday New Yorker, like one Bronx native who provided testimony in support of the Bruckner rezoning earlier this fall. She told us that if her neighborhood had an increased pipeline of affordable homes, she would not have had to move away from the community she was raised in, or move further away from her son's school and from their family. We must deepen affordability because affordable housing is too often unaffordable to those New Yorkers who need it the most. Households at or below 30% of area median income represent over a third of all renters, yet only 16% of affordable units produced since 2014 have been for them. Meanwhile, less than 1% of apartments at or below $1,500 per month are available. This is why every district must participate in solving our housing crisis. We will redouble our efforts to prioritize working New Yorkers who earn less than the median income. We will advocate for expanded communities to accept vouchers and market rate units and increase citywide housing production targets at the extremely and very low income housing levels. We will explore changes to mandatory inclusionary housing to better reflect New York City incomes. And we will put the dream of homeownership back within reach by investing in affordable homeownership opportunities for families making less than $100,000 per year. The time for a new supportive housing agreement between the city and state is now. Supportive housing is one of our most effective tools to address homelessness, mental health, addiction, and reentry from the justice system. We will prioritize preservation of our affordable housing stock, which has diminished over the past decade. It is critical that we ensure NYCHA and rent-stabilized units are maintained through funding programs and legislation. All of this requires that city agencies responsible for planning, housing production, preservation, and tenant protection have adequate resources. The council will continue advocating for the funding needed to get New Yorkers into housing. Together, this planning toolkit and housing agenda provide concrete steps to build more affordable housing in a fair and responsible way, deepen affordability, and address the bureaucratic neglect that obstructs housing preservation and production. This council will continue to play a constructive role in confronting the city's housing crisis. This success of our city requires a collaborative and holistic approach, and we look forward to partnering with the administration, as well as our state and federal partners, to achieve the housing results that all New Yorkers need. I'm very confident that we can get this right, and I'm laser focused on helping us to succeed. Thank you all very much.
So we're going to open up to questions on topic only. Michael?
Oh,
Yes, you have a
first. A couple of things. On the FAR piece of the plan, how much, can you just kind of lay out what is dependent on the state
Well, within this toolkit, we certainly do take a look at adjusting FAR as we take a look at adjusting the AMI, of course, the median income for all households. We are definitely in a housing crisis for New Yorkers that disproportionately hurt those who need affordable housing at the deepest levels, and we have to build in a more responsible way. So our Fair Housing Framework ensures the equitable distribution. So we're taking a look at all of these areas, particularly in increasing what we've been lacking, and that's making sure that people at the lowest areas of income do finally have a chance at affordable housing.
The other thing I wanted to ask is, it says something in the plan about addressing vacancies in rent-regulated apartments. And so I'm curious, I mean, from the landlord's perspectives, they say, well, we own this, we can do whatever we want with it. Maybe not so good for the rest of the city because people need those places to live. But what can the city, or even the state for the matter, do about that? I mean, they own that property, they have their property rights. I mean, how do you kind of address that?
That's a very, very good question. As far as the vacancies are concerned, that's something that the council still has to prioritize, and we've got to work. The work is still ongoing when it comes to vacancies and working with our landlords. This agenda puts together the production, though, of affordable housing and building that, and making a system that has been inequitable, equitable, finally, for the people that need it the most. So yes, we're still taking a look at the vacancies and working together to try to work with our landlords to get that right. But this plan and this agenda looks forward into planning fair housing that specifically targets those that have not had an opportunity, quite frankly, to stay here in the city of New York.
Well, let's get through just your comments first. Ellen, do you have a question?
Speaker Adams, can you talk a bit more about what's in the toolkit, whether it'll go to developers? It does feel like an emphasis from the mayor's side is that new constructions go up and that building get done, and the affordability might be maybe a second thought.
Yeah. We all agree that we are facing a dire housing crisis, and it has to be addressed by building more housing throughout the city, even if we may focus on different aspects of it. The focus of my housing agenda, though, is a fair housing framework that prioritizes equitable distribution of affordable housing development so all communities contribute to solving the crisis. We're deepening affordability, preserving affordable housing, and restoring capacity for staffing and resources so that key agencies can execute those housing goals with us. So this really is, it's a collaborative effort, but it takes a far more extensive look at not just the numbers. It takes a look at the process and planning of how we get there. How do we actually get there? How do we change a system that's kept so many people out of the loop and out of accessing fair housing for so long?
And may I ask how you would respond to criticism that, as well intended as the goal is to get to deeper affordability, that it might slow down the process of building when it's so desperately needed?
Well, what we're talking about is comprehensive planning. So it's definitely not the same as red tape or bureaucracy. Comprehensive planning for neighborhoods lead to better and more successful, sustainable development. So do we think the processes in government that can be tightened? Absolutely. The processes can definitely be tightened, but our neighborhoods and city require comprehensive planning to achieve successful development, and that is what we're aiming to do with this agenda and this toolkit.
Jeff?
This brings to mind the previous speaker, Corey Johnson's comprehensive planning bill that he brought forward in 2020. There were some hearings that never got passed. You weren't a co-sponsor either. I'm wondering what kept you from signing on to that, and what's different about your plan than this previous comprehensive planning idea?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Jeff. We have to build housing in a more responsible way. This plan takes a look at equitable distribution, and the former plan did not. There's really no comparison between the two, though. This carries a responsibility for every district to contribute to the affordability of their district, no matter what that looks like. So we have to collaboratively solve our city's housing crisis by producing affordable housing. But my housing agenda prioritizes increased affordable housing development under a fair housing framework. And I think that's the biggest difference. The preservation of existing affordable housing and the restoration of the capacity of our housing agencies in helping us to get to these efforts. Also, the land use process and really taking a good look at that to be successful, to meet our citywide goals and our local needs. It's got to be improved. And this toolkit actually takes advancements towards doing that as well. The toolkit provides council members and local communities and land use applicants, even city agencies also, with a guidance set of tools to achieve this. So we've actually got a plan and a motion and a mode and a way to get to from point A to point B and then move all the way through to Z.
And you've been talking about directing highly resourced neighborhoods to take part here. Maybe it's in the plan somewhere, so I'm sorry, but like, what's the mechanism there? I mean, you can't be forcing private developers to build in Bay Ridge, Park Slope, or whatever. Like, how are you encouraging every neighborhood to take part?
Yeah, that's a great question. The toolkit actually encourages the collaboration between communities even more than has been. We've been looking at, of course, the great work of our community boards, our civics. We want to get even more collaboration between our members and the community. So we're not just necessarily taking a look at the organizations or the boards or the civics. I want my next door neighbor to become involved with what our community is going to look like in the future. So it's going to be more bringing out more individuals to understand what their communities can look like, what the sustainability of affordability actually means, especially to get those neighborhoods that have not been participating in this effort of affordability for so long. We really want people to understand what this looks like, the positive results for the city. A lot of people complain about homelessness. They complain about people with no jobs. The way to attain the other side of that is to provide housing with affordability. So we've got to deepen that affordability. We have to make sure that people understand the attractiveness of this, of making sure that New Yorkers have a place to live, that we can sustain our population, because quite frankly, we're so far behind the 8 ball when it comes to affordable housing. We have to engage our community so that an understanding is created between our next door neighbors and not just our organizations, our boards, and our civics.
Last question.
So the goal, like setting it in, a threshold in certain wealthier neighborhoods, right?
Mhm.
You want to do is there a formula attached to that? Like, what is, how do you determine what the threshold is from neighborhood to neighborhood, right? Like, or is it kind of you're eyeballing each and saying, well, we haven't done something here in years, we should do something here. Like,
Yeah.
What's the process, thought process?
Yeah, there isn't so much of a threshold. It's just getting this on everybody's mind as a priority right now. So it really isn't about singling out any neighborhood. It's really about the recognition of all of us having to do our part as a city to actually get a handle on this crisis. Again, we're all talking about it. It's on everybody's mind. It's come up at the holiday tables, Thanksgiving. I'm sure it's going to come up during Hanukkah, Christmas. Now, all of this is coming up. This is on the forefront of all New Yorkers. How do we sustain our New Yorkers here in New York, and how do we stop an exodus? How do we bring people with no homes into homes? This plan and this guideline actually sets steps aside to make that happen. So I'm really, really excited about it. I'm encouraged about it. I think for the first time we actually have plans in place someplace to get us from point A to point B, and work collaboratively with our city and state partners and our federal partners. This is a national crisis. And again, we're looking for New York to lead. Several cities across this country are experiencing the same thing that New York is experiencing. So these are conversations that are being had across the board. We just want New York once again to lead the nation in solving this crisis. And I think that this toolkit is really a great start.
Thank you.
So I'm seeing like Eric Botcher is on board for sure. That like you've got carrots in this housing plan. Are there any sticks? Like how are you gonna get like Vicky Palladino? How are you gonna get Douglaston to come along and feel the same way?
Jeff has the last question, so we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, though. Thanks, everybody.